I apologize that I came late today. I actually was sitting upstairs and reluctant to come down and give the share because I'm struggling with the Gemara, and I don't like making a fool of myself in public. But Divrei Torah require one sometimes to be most it's such a share. And I consoled myself with the thought that this won't be a share. We'll just be trying to learn together, and let's see what we come out with. Because I'm really trying to get my head around the sugya and not sure I'm managing to do so. The thought experiment I want to focus on is one that the Rishonim discussed on Omud Base. And I just want to cut straight to the chase. Again, if you want to hear something, please listen to the recordings where we try to do Chazorah of the Sugya. But the core question, the core conceptual question we need to work out is as follows. Someone picks something up before Shabbos, stands still, and then on Shabbos begins walking off walks out of the Rishus. So Erev Shabbos, you pick up an object in your house. You have a pen in your pocket. I mean, what could be more normal than that? You have a pen in your pocket. Not normal, it's Chil Shabbos. So I'm saying, well, a regular scenario, you have a pen in your pocket and you're wandering around your house or for that matter in the street, and then you cross the border and you enter the house and put it down or stand still or the like. So, has an Akira taken place? And how do we relate to the scenario of standing still? So I need your help, Rabbi. So let's just cheshbon out the different combinations. Sorry.
So essentially, the Mishnah seems to be describing that situation because, at least in the case where the Oni puts something inside or the Balabite, there's no Akira. The item is in their hand already. The assumption is it got there, but the Mishnah doesn't say that they put it up. So presumably the Mishnah is dealing with exactly that case.
A situation where the Osher, let's say a situation where you're standing outside and you stretch, or inside, let's say, and you stretch out. Let's look at the language of the Mishnah together. Well, yeah. So okay, you're right. So it's the middle case. So the first scenario is Pashat Onias Yodid Ifnim, V'Nosan Seichel Shel Barabais. So let's take that scenario. So he had the object in his hands already. And it's a situation where he moves his hands out. And it was already torn.
Unless you say that the Mishnah is just not mentioning the fact that they picked it up.
Yes, and we saw that with Tosfos the other way around, where Tosfos talks about Halacha, but it's a shver Tosfos. Tosfos says, and it's not Tosfos that remains in the maskana. Tosfos asks, in the situation where you do, if Hanachas Gufo is lav Hanachas Chayfet, then how would we deal with every time when you bring something in? And he says, you have to say that you also put it down on the ground. So would there be the same question in the Havamin of the Gemara? If Akiras Gufo is lav Akiras Chayfet, why can't the Gemara prove why again the Gemara has a possibility that Akiras Gufo is lav Akiras Chayfet. So let's go in that possibility. So why can't the Gemara answer its question from, well, how do you ever have the Mishnah then? And the answer would have to be that the Mishnah is talking about where you pick it off the ground, but why doesn't Tosfos spell it out in the same way as he spells it out with Hanachas Gufo? I told you I didn't want to give share.
Actually,
Yeah.
Again, the Rashi on the Mishnah.
Yes.
And then Rashi goes on to say, so
Yeah.
an Akira is taking place with the Mishnah.
Right, Rashi might be going in the Maskana. In the Maskana, like Akiras Gufo, Akiras Chayfet, we've resolved this problem. But in the Havamina, the Akiras Gufo is love. One second. In the Havamina, the Akiras Gufo is love Akiras Chayfet. So, I'll come to it in a minute. If in the Havamina, the Akiras Gufo is love Akiras Chayfet. So, where is the Akira if you're already loaded? So, one answer to the question, which is where we're getting to really, would be maybe the Akira that you do previously joins in. Akira would help, but let's avoid that. Another answer would be in a kimta that it's talking about where you pick it up off the ground, but Tosfos didn't mention that kimta. He only mentioned it in Hanachas Gufo, especially if you didn't pick it up off the ground. Does it help us that it's domini yodoi? How much does that help us? if we go with that mahalach, there's yodoi different to gufoi. So again, yodoi, the Gemara asks the question of Akiras gufoi because you're not changing the place. And if it's on your hand, you're also not changing the mokum. Does anyone have an answer to this, Rafi? You're putting your hand up.
If we don't hold of Akiras Gufo, then in the same way, like Tosfot, according to Tosfot, we don't hold of concept of Hanachat Gufo. So therefore, if it's you pick up an item from the ground and then you just rest your hands still, there's not going to be any Hanachat Gufo that would cancel the original Akira. So therefore, when you so we understand it without the concept of Akira Gufo, because it would be applied to the original Akira to connect. We can't cancel that picking up from the ground.
So your answer would be it's talking about a case where you pick it up off the ground.
Yeah.
That would technically answer the question. Nonetheless, that's adding another clause into the mission that's not mentioned. And Tosfos said, yeah, it could have been your hand from Erev Shabbos. Unless you say that's an unlikely scenario. In the Mishnah, Rafi is saying as follows: when it comes to Hanachas Gufo, Hanachas Seifetz or not, the Mishnah doesn't mention you only chayv if you put it down. And that's therefore Tosfos is bothered by that, and Tosfos has to kvetch a chiddush that your chayav, that the Mishnah means that you put it down. But in a Kira scenario, of course you picked it up off the ground. I mean, where else would it be? And the answer would be, well, maybe things are in your hands from Erev Shabbos, but Tosfos didn't consider that a likely scenario. Tosfos on Amud Beis, we're a bit begging the question over here, because Tosfos on Amud Beis does discuss this. Why doesn't the Gemara talk about the scenario where you picked it up on Erev Shabbos? But you could say, Rafi's saying that that's a funny scenario that you picked up on Erev Shabbos. It's posher in the Mishnah you picked it up on Shabbos. Could be. Yeah.
Maybe we're overthinking it, because if you're standing in Rishut Harabim, you're the item, and you're holding the item, because you're standing in the Rishut Harabim and your hand is part of your body, that item is in Rishut Harabim. As soon as you move your hand, you're doing that here. Why do you need to pick it up? That item is clearly in Rishut Harabim. It's in your hand. You're moving it. That's the here.
The question is, if that is different to Gufo. If you don't distinguish between Yad and Guf, then the mokum of the Chayfetz is on your Guf. What's the weakness with Akiras Gufo, Akiras Chayfetz? What's the reason why Akiras Gufo shouldn't be enough? So if the answer to that question is because you're not changing the mokum of the Chayfetz, then if the object's in your hands, in your Yad, you're also not changing the mokum of the Chayfetz. And if the weakness is that you're acting only indirectly on the chayfetz because you're moving your body and the hand is moving itself, then here too you're acting indirectly on the chayfetz. So is there svara? Would the svara of saying a distinction between this and yad be relevant over here? Let's just try and think through. Is there svara to say that yad is different in this case? So again, we saw three svaras in yad. So give me 1 second. We saw a number of svaras in yad. No, so we saw Yad, there's more. Rashi said, one reading of Rashi was that Yad, there's more of a svara to say that the mokum of the Chayfetz is the Yad. With the body, you can say that the mokum of the Chayfetz is the ground where the feet are standing. But Yodoi is weaker, the Gemara says. Ve'einu domini Yodoi means that Rashi, if it's Yodoi Pshuta that's Yad in another Rishus, then definitely that's not relevant over here. You're holding the Yad in your Rishus. I don't know, it could be the only answer is like Rafi saying, it's the Gemara presumes you picked it up at some point. Maybe.
But the other must they go to the body when you're in the same trip, because in compared to the Mishnah, when the only places it in the hand of the usher who's inside, he's placing it in his hand. He's not placing it on the ground. So he's placing it in the hand of the usher, and that is a hanaka. There's no question.
Right. Yeah, because
when your hand is next to your body in the same shirt, your hand is your body.
Yes. Well, your hand is in the rishus. Now, what's the mokum of the chayfetz? So either the mokum of the chayfetz is the same as your body, it's on your body, or the mokum of the chayfetz is your feet, or the mokum of the chayfetz is your hand. And none of that matters. Because in either case, you've moved the makom of the chayfetz from one makom to another, and you've moved the reshus of the object from one makom to another. So when I put it into someone's hand standing in reshus, with the language of the one, it's a ma'isa omud ba'alma. The human being is just a human pillar. I can place it on a table, I can place it on someone's hand, doesn't make a difference. Our question is when it's already in someone's hand, let's say someone places it in my hand, someone is standing in Rishos Yachid, someone places it in my hand, and then I stretch my hand out. So the simplest reading of the Mishnah is that you're chayiv in such a case. But why would you be chayiv if Akiras Gufo is lav Akiras chayfetz? In Halacha, the answer is because Akiras Gufo is Akiras chayfetz. In the Havamina of the Gemara, in Rav's Shaila, Akiras Gufo is lav Akiras chayfetz. He would have had to say the Mishnah is talking about where you would pick it up off the ground. But I don't know. Does anyone mention that? Am I missing something? Does someone discuss this? Sorry, Adam.
No, I would just sort of
Yeah.
the way that there are quite a few other scenarios we haven't yet covered, which
Yeah.
I think are relevant to understand the Sugya. I think you need to look at the examples where they carry things inside from corner to corner, they change their mind, where they carry on the shoulder to rest and not on the rest. I mean, in order to understand this Sugya, then we have to look at the 3 or 4 different scenarios to get a better understanding of how this whole thing works.
Yes, I am jumping a bit ahead. Yeah, I am jumping ahead because some of these scenarios are connected with Amud Base. And it could be we should press the pause button here and move on in the Gemara, and then we go through all of this. As of this moment here, I'm not sure if the best answer is I don't know. Okay. Again, in La Halacha, this isn't a problem because we pass on Akiras Gufo Akiras Chayfetz, and in the Havamina, maybe you're about to say it's talking about where he picks it up off the ground also. Don't know, not great. Yeah.
I think maybe it has to be like Rafi says. Otherwise, the second half, the ones where the Annie puts the stuff into the hand of the Baal guys, and then he brings his hand in.
Yeah.
That's exactly the same situation. If there hadn't been an Akira in the first.
So which case?
So by this towards the second lot of cases with Pasha Hani Edolifnim and Atal Balabayit Mitocha, and they're pater. So if there hasn't been an Akira in the first cases in the Mishnah, then it would essentially be equivalent to those cases where the person who does the transfer of Rashut hasn't done the Akira. Because the other person...
No, but the reason you're potter is because the other person, the crossing the Rishus was done by the other person. Let's say in the case of Pasha Anis Yaduvnim. Who should be chayiv in that case? Like you need to work through your point, Martin. Yeah. Okay, let's try and just think this. Sorry, so again, which scenario are you talking about?
So then someone takes it to his hand, takes it out.
The second scenario of the Mishnah. So not on the Masechet of the Hotzaah. So you're saying it must be that no Akira has happened in that case, because otherwise he's lacking his Akira. No, that combination may not be correct. It's possible that you can have one Akira after another Akira. This is in a way what I wanted to discuss. Okay, so Martin's case is a good springboard really to where part of what I wanted to say. In the second scenario of the Mishnah, the Oni, the Balabais has picked up the object, it's in his hand. The Oni leans in, takes it out of the hands of the Balabais, and brings it out to the Shasarabim. Now, in that case, you've had an Akira through him removing it from the hands of the Balabais, moving the Rishus, and then the Oni holding in the Shasarabim. So everything relevant has happened already. So Akira, Havara, and Hanacha, no problem at all. Now, the Balabais, picked it up off the ground. So the answer is, yeah, but the Balabais is a human table here. It's simply resting on the hands of the Balabais, and the Oni is doing everything, is transferring over. Is that evidence that the Balabais hasn't done an Akira? The answer is no, because possibly the Balabais has picked it off the ground, so he's done his Akira, and nonetheless, the Oni leaning over does a second Akira. Can you have one Akira after the other? Well, if an Akira is in the object, no, because it's already happened. If the Akira is subjective, whether I have engaged with the melacha, then yes, it could be the Osher has picked it up off the ground and is holding it in his hands. But the Oni, in leaning over and taking it out in the hands of the Osher, has done his Akira and therefore has done everything sufficient for that. Does that
happened, or is
No, not on Masocha. He takes it from his hands. Yes, sorry.
No, I said that you said there wasn't a Akira from a Balabais. Again, from other cases, I'm not sure there is, because in order to have an Akira, you have to have intention, I believe, later on, to actually want to take that thing outside. Doing an Akira in your own, with intention to going from corner to corner, you see later on, and then changing your mind and going outside.
So I'm going to stop you because you're right. We have to see the other scenarios, but I want to avoid us overloading with factors. You're right. What you're saying. We have to work through each case by case. I've chosen a different style of working through this. There's a number of thought experiments we can have, including changing of mind. I just don't want to overload with every combination, so I'm just trying to sort of work through each. I think you're right. All I'm saying is, I'm saying a more modest point than that. Even if the Osher has done an Akira already, which is Martin's question, surely the Osher has done an Akira, that doesn't contradict the Oni doing a second Akira afterwards. It's a more modest claim than that. You're right, we need to work through all the cases of the Gemara, but I'm just worried about overloading ourselves. Yeah.
Sorry, you said from the perspective of the object.
Yeah.
But from the perspective of the object, there's also going to have stop. So even from the perspective of the
Yes, which is really our discussion of Omid Lofish.
I'm saying
Could well be, and again, this is why I want to try and work through all the combinations. Yes. So again, let's just again think through our scenario. Someone picks up an object. Let's say someone picks up an object on Shabbos, then is Omid Lofish, decides just to hold it there, so they have stopped, and then steps out of the Rishus. So Tosfos says, Mimon of Shach, there's been an Akira. That's what Tosfos on Amud Beis says, and I just want to think through the maths of that claim. So someone picks up an object, they've done an Akira, perhaps. They then stand still. So Tosfos is saying, if the standing still is called a Hanacha, then that's because Hanacha's Gufo is Kanachas Tevet. So there's been a Hanacha. But then, by definition, Akiras Gufo is Akiras Tevet, and therefore now when they walk out, they're Chayiv. So they're Chayiv for the second Akira. If Hanacha's Gufo is Lav Kanachas Tevet, then when they stood still, they haven't done a Hanacha. And therefore the original Hanacha original Akira, can count as the Akira that is Mechayiv them. So either the second Akira will make you Chayiv or the first Akira will make you Chayiv. So you pick up an object on Shabbos, stand still, and then walk out. So either the first Akira happened because nothing cancelled the first Akira, or yes, by standing still you cancelled the first Akira, but then the second, by definition, if standing still is called cancelling, if Anachas Gufo is Kanachas Tevet, then Akiras Gufo is Akiras Chayfetz, and therefore the second Akira would help. That's the argument being put forward. Well, this is what we're going. This is what I'm talking about on this Tosfos. That's what I'm talking about on this Tosfos, because our Tosfos and the Tosfos Yeshonim, the Rashba and the Tosfos Yeshonim, are arguing about the degree to which you can equate Akiras Gufo and Hanachas Gufo, whether the two questions are the same or not. So let's just try and work through again the maths of this Mimonoshach. If is this dependent on? Is everyone with me in this calculation? Yeah. So is this dependent again on the Rashba, the Tosfos Yeshonim versus Tosfos argument or not? Now, if Tosfos is saying there's Mimonoshach, if Hanachas Gufo is Kanachas Chayfetz, then that does indeed cancel the first Akira, but then you've got the second Akira. If Hanachas Gufo is Lav Kanachas Chayfetz, then you don't cancel the first Akira, and then you can rely on the first Akira. Is that maths true? Is it not possible that Hanachas Gufo is Lav Kanachas Chayfetz, and nonetheless the object is munach? I would argue that is possible, and there's a mistaken logic going on over here. Again, I hope I'm not losing everyone here. No, let me go through it and then just explain this. If Akiras, Tosfos says as follows: I pick up an object, I then stand still. So Tosfos says as follows: if standing still is a hanacha, that indeed cancels my original Akira. But then by walking off, I'm doing a new Akira. And if standing still is not a hanacha, because hanachas gufo is not hanachas chayfetz, then my original Akira can be mechayev me. I don't know if that's logically correct. It's possible that hanachas gufo is lav kanachas chayfetz, because my engagement with the melacha, I didn't do a hanacha. Subjectively, my human relationship, I didn't do a ma'isa hanacha. And nonetheless, the object is munach. And therefore, the original Akira is cancelled. Why would the object be munach? Because the evidence is, because if someone plucks it off my hands while I'm being omid lofish, they would be chayev. So you see that the object is, from the objective perspective, the object is munach. Again, I'm the osher. I like being the osher, not the ani. So I'm in my house. I pick up the object to take out. There's intentionality, there's everything there. I've done an akira. I then stand to rest. I then walk out of the house. It says Tosfos Mimonoshach am chayev, either for the original akira or for the second akira, because it depends on whether Hanachas Gufo and Kanachas Chayfetz. There's another possibility. There's a possibility that in standing still, the object is deemed as having come to rest, but that wouldn't be Hanachas Gufo, Kanachas Chayfetz. It wouldn't be considered a Ma'isa Hanacha. My evidence for that is every case. The Osher picks up an object, exactly Martin's thought experiment. The Osher picks up the object, and then the Oni leans in and takes it out. The Oni is deemed as taking the object from a place of Hanacha. 1 second. The Oni is deemed as taking the object from a place of Hanacha. Why is the Oni taking it from a place of Hanacha? Because from an objective point of view, the Chayfetz is on a human table. So we see that when someone picks something up and then stands still, the object is munach in the rishus. Even if hanachas gufo is lav kanachas chayfetz, all hanachas gufo lav kanachas chayfetz means is not deemed me placing it down. So I haven't done the melacha, but the object is placed down. Hooray! If someone picks it up off my hand, they're chayev. So Tosfos in saying Mimonoshach seems to be making a mistake in logic. We'll have to understand this. Tosfos is saying if hanachas gufo is lav kanachas chayfetz, then the object has not been placed on the ground. Not true. The object is down. I haven't done my action of placing it down. So what's Tosfos' Mimonoshach? 1 second. What's Tosfos' Mimonoshach? Are you with me in hearing the question? Is anyone with me? Okay, yes, comments. Yes. Yes. Yes.
There was the fact that you happen to be standing still as a row.
I don't know if that's correct, the halacha. If the osher is mid moving out and I grab it off him and take it off, don't know, we'd have to work out the case. Once the osher is holding the bread in his hands, he's planning to move out, and the Oni is so desperate for the bread, he grabs it off the osher's hand and takes it out. I don't know, we'd have to work it out. It may feel like an Akira. The question is it an Akira? That's begging the question. We don't know. That maybe in motion is not called. I'm not being disingenuous here. I don't know. We'd have to work it through. Adam, sorry. That's the Tosfos Shalom's point, indeed. Correct.
You could not have, you'd have another Gufo, but you wouldn't necessarily have an Akiras Gufo after.
Yeah, Tosfos isn't going with that. Tosfos is going with Shatoso, that the two are dependent on each other. Yeah. Yeah. But we're going with Tosfos consistent. Tosfos' view is the two are dependent on each other. All I'm really trying to bring out is that it's possible, in the same way as it's possible that all I'm trying to bring out is the divide between subjective and objective even exists when from an objective level the chayfetz has been put down. What we see in Tosfos is it's conceivable that on an objective level a chayfetz is on a ground, and therefore someone else who takes it has done an akira, and nonetheless, since hanachas gufo is lav kanachas chayfetz, I haven't done an akira, and therefore my original akira isn't cancelled. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to separate completely the objective and subjective discussion. The object can be considered completely munach in the rishus, and nonetheless, my original picking up of the object is not cancelled. Because the logic of Akira, again, isn't about objects, it's about subjects. It's to what degree am I engaging with the melacha. So again, I pick up an object, I then stand still to rest. If hanachas gufo is lav kanachas chayfetz, that means I haven't ended my action. I'm just standing to rest. I haven't cancelled my original Akira, and therefore Tosfos can say, I'm chayiv for the original Akira. True, if someone else then comes along and plucks it off my hand, they'll be chayiv. They'll be chayiv because the object is at rest, and now they've taken the object on themselves. Akira means, am I taking this, am I engaging in the action of taking it out? If hanachas gufo is lav kanachas chayfetz, I haven't disengaged from it. I haven't placed it on the ground, so I'm still engaged with it. I'm just resting, I'm stopping for a bit. Therefore, when I now carry on, Tosfos can say, if hanachas gufo is lav kanachas chayfetz, I haven't disengaged, and my original Akira can make me chayiv. Someone else who steps forward and plucks it from my hands is chayiv. That's true, because from their vantage point, it's fully in the rishus, and they're now engaging with the melacha. I don't want to go over time because it's at 10:04, so we'll stop here. With again, just please listen to the recordings, digest this. I know this is a jumble because this is difficult, but I'm arguing that we need to think of Akira and halacha as purely, at least in one model, as purely subjective, purely about my engagement with the melacha and my disengagement with the melacha, completely detached from a separate question about where is the object found. And if it's feasible that I can pick up an object and stop, and my original akira is not cancelled, even if then someone else comes along and does it, they've done also an akira. You can have one akira, Reuven can do an akira, and Shimon can do an akira after that, and there's no contradiction because both Reuven steps forward to engage with the melacha, and then Shimon steps forward to take the object upon himself as a burden to carry. And there isn't a contradiction between it, even though Reuven's akira hasn't been cancelled. Okay, so we'll stop here and we'll carry on a minute.